Welcome to the Purity for Life podcast, episode 136, Building Confession and Humility into Your Recovery. For more information on this podcast and other great content, visit purityforlife.me. Today, I want to talk a little bit on the podcast about two incredibly essential benchmarks for our recovery. These are actually pretty foreign concepts for us as men. And when I say them to you, you'll know why. If you're a guy and you don't struggle with these two things in your recovery, then I would just make sure that the blood running through your body is red. So, because we all do. We all struggle with these two things that I'm about to share and discuss. And we need for these two ingredients to be a part of our recovery from sexual addiction, from pornography addiction, from whatever the struggle is that you have, whatever kind of sexual addiction you have. These are two areas that we need to really focus on. Are you ready for them? The areas are, we're going to talk about confession and humility. Confession and humility. And just for the next few minutes, I want to share a little bit about confession, about humility, about, why are these so important in our recovery? Well, number one, confession. If you're a guy who deals with some kind of problem with, pornography or masturbation or lust or sex, some kind of sexual addiction, confession is not the word that you want to hear. For so many years, I've shared my story on my website, which is purityforlife.me. I lived a secret. I lived a lie. Confession was the total opposite. Thank you for that heart, by the way. Thank you for that tap in the Periscope. If you guys are jiving with what I'm saying throughout the podcast, please tap on the hearts, and it kind of helps me to know that I'm hitting the right tone here. And if you have any questions or anything like that, any comments you want to send through the chat, please do that, and I'll try to answer that throughout the Periscope, throughout the podcast. For so many years, I just lived a lie. And confession to me was saying, God, I'm sorry. I don't want to do this. And then I'd go right back into my sin. I'd go right back into my addiction. And it wasn't true confession because I wasn't really allowing that struggle. I wasn't really allowing that addiction. I wasn't putting it out into the light. Sure, I was going to God and I was asking God for forgiveness, but nobody else knew. No one knew about my struggle. None of my friends, none of my coworkers, none of my ministry partners. There was no one, mentors, coaches. There was nobody in my life that knew about my struggle. Even my own family. I think they may have suspected something, but they didn't really know. And so therefore, for so many years, I lived a lie, and I struggled. I struggled and struggled. For 13 years, I was addicted to porn. And confession, was not was not truly integrated into my life. And it wasn't until recovery that I began to learn. It wasn't until my recovery where I began to learn that confession, not just to Jesus, very, very important, right? Our confession to God, but confession to other brothers and other sisters about our sin, about our struggle, about our addiction, our pulls, our triggers, our temptations. This, confession paves the way to healing. If we can really understand the power of confession, and I don't mean confession, and it's kind of it might sound like I'm not trying to stereotype, but it's not. This isn't just a Catholic word here. Confession isn't about going into a booth and confessing to a priest. Confession, it's a way of life. It's daily. It's weekly. Sharing your life with someone, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right? Your temptations, your triggers, the times that you've fallen, the times that you have slipped, all those things. So important to learn about confession, because confession leads to humility. And if there's another word that I want to touch on, it's that word, humility. Again, this is a foreign concept to us as men, because we are not humble at all. One of the biggest areas in my life that I even at times struggle to this day is humility. and being a man who's humble, who's not prideful, who's not a complainer, who doesn't think more of himself than others. And if you and I can't learn about humility, about becoming humble and realizing that we don't have our stuff together and we need help. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I love being transparent. I love sharing my story. Some people think it's weird, but I love it. If we can't learn to be humble, if we can't learn to share everything in our lives and to realize that we need the help of Christ, that we need the help of other people, then we will totally nosedive, and we're gonna struggle the rest of our life. I believe that in addition to confession, that humility is, as I read in a devotional recently, it says, this is from Every Day for Every Man, by the way. I want to give credit where credit is due. Every Day for Every Man devotional from the Every Man series. I just had it on my screen now. There it is. Okay. It says, because confession puts an end to self-deception. Hello, Brazil, saying hello there. Shout out to Brazil. Because confession puts an end to self-deception and replaces it with humility, the one quality required for us to become God's man or God's woman. And I thought this was interesting as I kind of looked at humility in this devotional. It talked about the word humility, what humility actually means in the New Testament. Check this out. This is cool. The original word for humility in the New Testament pictures something that is pliable or flexible, right? Humility shows a willingness to be guided by God and to be moldable, to be flexible. It allows us to be flexible enough to confess our failings in order to gain character transformation. And again, that's from Every Man, God's Man, pages 46 and 47. But that gives us a really great picture of what humility actually means and what humility is. And if there are two benchmarks that we need in our lives, again, it is humility and confession. And we can't have one without the other in recovery. We need to really ask God for that, ask for help, that He would restore in us. That I've talked a lot on the podcast before about brokenness, right? Becoming that being one of the very first steps to healing and to recovery is brokenness. Well, we also need to remember that confession is also it shouldn't be a scary word. Confession means we're going to find safe people in our lives to talk to. And I talked about that in our series on accountability recently too. You can go back to the website and the podcast to check that out. But when we're confessing to people, we're finding safe people who love us, who are not afraid to hear all the stuff that we have that we're dealing with. But we're sharing our lives with them, every single part of it, and we're making it a daily habit, right? We're not just doing it one time or once a year or once every 6 months. We incorporate this into our lives, right? And then confession leads to what? Humility, like we said. And humility is so important. We have to have humility in our lives. We need it. We've got to have it. We've got to remember that we are weak, that we struggle. That's right. Intellectual soul, iron sharpens iron. That says it right there. We have got to be there for each other and realize that we cannot walk this life out. I cannot become a man of sexual purity on my own. I just can't do it. And I need other people, and I need to have that humility in my heart, in my mind, and I need to be connected with other people and other men in my life that can just help me. And this is a hard thing to do. It breaks my heart when I run into guys that have not reached this place. Believe me, for a long time, I wasn't at this place. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm like somebody great or anything. But it breaks my heart when I see a man who hasn't reached this place of humility and confession, that he goes on and on and on with his life and his behavior, and it's destroying himself. It's destroying all the people around him, and it's a tough thing. So, again, confession and humility so important in our recovery, and I hope that that's an encouraging kind of message for you today, because we need it, right? This is a journey. I've talked before. Recovery is a long-term process. It's a long-term journey. And these are just two of the ingredients necessary for our recovery. So again, that reading was from Every Man, God's Man, pages 46 and 47. Give them credit for that. But that you know, I want to challenge you and encourage you to pray for humility in your life. Pray that you would become a person. I pray for this, that I would become a man who is pliable, who is flexible, that I'm willing always to be guided by God, to be transparent and accountable to men, to people, right? That I'm not hiding anything, that I don't need to hide anything in my life because, again, just like we read earlier, as we confess, as we find humility, it puts an end to the self-deception, right? It puts an end to secrecy. It puts an end to shame, and we want to begin walking in the light in our recovery. So I hope that's encouraging to you today. Again, this is the Purity for Life podcast, episode 136, building confession and humility into your recovery. I do thank you guys for joining. I see there's 2 of you guys still kind of watching, and I thank you. If you want to write out where you're from, that would be really cool. I know we've had a couple people in here from Brazil, and I saw Russia go by. I saw all kinds of feedback there. I want to encourage you to head over to my website, which is purityforlife.me. Purityforlife.me. Montgomery, Alabama. Awesome. Really great to have you, intellectual soul. I've never been to Alabama, but I bet it's pretty nice and muggy and humid down there, I would imagine. But we're getting ready to walk into the fall season, so hopefully it'll cool down. But go to purityforlife.me. If you need help, if you need any kind of encouragement, if you need just some resources, there's all kinds of great stuff, podcasts, audio, video on the website, and articles and links and resources. Head over to purityforlife.me. is the website, and I'm all over social media. If I can be a help and encouragement to you, I love to help men. My wife and I help couples who are walking through this struggle, but I work a lot with men, and I would love to help you out in any way I possibly can. If you want to email or call or whatever, we can set something like that up and kind of begin communicating a little bit. And but this is my heart, this is my passion. And I'd love to help guys who deal with this, who struggle with this, become men of sexual purity, the men that God has called them to be. So I thank you guys so much for watching the Purity for Life podcast 136, building confession and humility into your recovery. Have a great week. Would love to hear from you. So go onto the website, email me, send me a message all over Facebook, Twitter. Find a place that you can connect there and be encouraged and grow in your recovery to become the man or woman that God's called you to be. Thanks so much for watching tonight. God bless.